And that could be missionaries as in customers, not just employees. You can have customers out there, they are fired up and they want to see you do great. That's what it is. You got to, it's all of that. It's hearts and minds and market share. It's not Excel sheets and PowerPoints and spreadsheets and dollar signs. It won't work.
In a world where AI can create average content at scale, average no longer safe. In fact, it may be the most dangerous place to be. Today, I'm talking with Barry LaBov, author of The Power of Differentiation, about something every coach, consultant, author, and business owner needs to wrestle with. What makes you truly different? Not louder, not trendier, not more polished, but truly different. Barry makes a powerful point in this conversation. Most of the time, your differentiation, it's already there. You don't need to invent it. You need to discover it, honor it, and celebrate it. And often, the things that feel ordinary to you are the very things that are amazing to others. That's especially true in podcast interview marketing. The best guests are not trying to sound like everyone else. They know what they believe. They know what they do differently. And they know who they are there to serve. So as you listen today, ask yourself, what things should I never change? What's the thing that my best clients already value, but I may have stopped talking about? Because when you can clearly communicate your difference, you stop competing as a commodity and you start becoming the obvious choice. Barry, when I saw the title of your book, The Power of Differentiation, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm downloading that one and listening to it. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for what you do. And could you tell me, why did you write this book? Why was The Power of Differentiation so important to you?
I had been wanting to write this book for years, and I started to do it, Tom. I was working on it. I was going on airplane flights and I'd be writing and writing and writing. And I was pretty close to finishing it. And then COVID hit. And I thought, oh my gosh, things are changing. You know, I had this book and it was all about how to differentiate your brand, whether it's a person, a company, a product, but how to differentiate it so it stood out, so it wasn't a commodity. And then after COVID hit, what struck me, and this was huge, Tom, over 100 million people in the United States quit their jobs in 1 year during COVID. And I thought, you know, differentiation is so much more than let's sell a little more product. It's let's make sure our people actually care about what they're doing and they think where they work has some value or distinctiveness, something that's unique. So what happened was that allowed me to rewrite the book, and the tagline on the book or the subtitle is Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. So that's what motivated me. We got to win the hearts of our people and our customers. We got to win the minds of people so they go, this is smart, this is great, this makes a difference. And then, yes, we're going to grow business.
I love that. And because it applies to so many different things, right? If you're the employee trying to get a job, you better be not a commodity. You better be memorable. If you're a podcaster, hey, you better be memorable and not like everyone else. And I think with AI putting out slop at scale, right? The commodity is the worst place to get, right? Turn me up or turn me off, but don't just forget about me.
Well, and the thing is commodities have been threatening our companies, all kinds of companies, for decades and decades. AI has just cranked up the volume on that.
Yeah. So you've got a long history, right? You were Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year, which is like a huge freaking thing. That's not just the Inc. 5000. That's the pinnacle there. So, you know, you've seen it evolve there. Where do you think people should think about it, where it's going here in the future, why it's more important today than ever?
Well, I mentioned earlier that the employee, the person who makes your product, fixes your product, sells your product, needs to feel that they're doing something of value, that they have a significance. So I think that's really important. I think right now with AI and how it's growing by leaps and bounds, we have to hold on to what makes us unique. And if you look at the AI slop, as you called it, and that's what much of it is, everything that you see coming from, or most of what you see coming from AI, is very, very homogenized. It's very similar. It could be any company saying any of these things. So if it was important 10 years ago, it's mandatory now. We have to stand out. And the other thing I'd like to say is our world is very, very skeptical. So what's interesting is we have to stand out, because most of the time people are going to go, yeah, they're probably the same as everybody else. No. Here's what makes us unique. Here's why we are different. So that's why it's important that the world's changed, and the only thing we can hold on to is our identity.
So talk more about that. How can you look at your own identity? How am I different? How do I embrace that? How, as a company, do I look at things that I embrace, things that I reject? How do you identify that in yourself, maybe as the first thing, and then how do you communicate that to the world?
Great question. I can give you a secret answer to that. Don't tell anybody. What we do when we're talking to customers of our clients, to their employees, to their suppliers, we ask them a number of questions, but one is, and this can apply to anybody. So Tom, it could be you. You could ask this of somebody. Okay, what is it that I should not change? What am I doing that I must hold on to, that I cannot consider throwing out? Because whether it's a person asking that question or a brand, you start to realize there are certain untouchables. And the big thing we have to do is realize, what are those untouchables? Because a lot of us are willing to change anything to grow our business, anything to do better. So we have to identify it. Now, my company has a group of people who we call technical immersion experts. And these experts go into our clients' facilities and look for uniqueness, look for differentiation. And we try to find it. And most of the time, here's what's happening. It's right there in front of us. It's right there in front of our customers, but they don't see it because they're too close. It's something they do all the time. And they go, oh, no, that's just us. Well, no, that's unique. So we have to either ask people and glean what they're saying, or bring in a fresh set of eyes and ears to learn that for you.
So interesting. It's like one of my favorite phrases is, what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. Mm-hmm. And it's this idea of, well, if you can do it, you assume everyone does it, right? I remember one time we had somebody that came in to work with us that worked in the financial services industry. And they're in New York, and she was like, oh, you have all the systems and the processes. I've never seen this before. It scared me to death. It's like, what do you mean? I thought all businesses had this. And to her coming in, she could identify that because she came with a fresh set of eyes. So do you think that the individual sometimes is the hardest person to pick out what's different?
Well, what I find at the companies we work at is that many of the leaders or founders were engineers or scientists or very, very brilliant, creative, innovative individuals. And once they created that one thing, they moved on to other things that got their interest, and they forgot about that one thing that they did that was so great. So part of my job that I love is that it's so positive. So I'll sit an engineer down and I'll go, now you do realize what you're doing here is special, right? And he would go, no, it's not. And everybody, no, everybody doesn't do it. And you're the only company that does. Plus, you also do these two things that no company has even fathomed before. And most of the time the engineer goes, well, I hadn't thought of it quite like that. Yes, this is unique. And then we ask other questions. Do you promote it? Do you let your customers know these different things? And they usually go, No, we just thought they should know that. I mean, we expect them to know. Okay, great. What about your customer, or what about your employees? Do you ask your employees about why do we do this? Why do you think? He said, no, we just assume that they're just doing it and we're all doing it together and we're okay. And I said, that's what we need to start doing though. We need to let customers know not just why we're doing it, but what we're doing that is so unique. Why we're going through that extra step or two, or paying that extra amount of money for this technology or for this extra concept that we have in there or extra feature. If we don't do it, it's kind of like the tree that falls in the forest, you know, the old saying, did it make a sound? If nobody was there, did it make a sound? And the same thing here. If nobody talks about what makes you unique, are you really different after all?
That's interesting. It almost sounds like, you know, your brand or your reputation is what other people say about you, not what you say about yourself. So you better tell those stories so that they understand it and they can repeat it.
Right. And, you know, I'm an old, washed up musician. So I'll go to rock concerts today and some classic rock band will get up and play. Well, I want them to play their hits. I don't want to hear stuff that they just created yesterday and not hear those handful of songs that I love, right? Well, it's the same thing that our customers and our employees want. We have some things we do that are great, and they want that to be shown. They want those to have a spectacle around them. And we have to do that because otherwise we just brush aside the uniqueness and we go on with our day. And worse than that, if we keep doing that, we lose what's unique. We then start to act like, look like, smell like, and price like the competition because after all, we're thinking that's who we are.
And I don't know if it's the price or get paid, right? If we're just like everybody else and it's a commodity, we take what the market offers, not what we believe we deserve for our differentiation.
Right. Many of us can bring great value to our customers, but if it doesn't start inside us by realizing that and identifying, being able to actually crystallize what we do that's valuable, if we can't do it, then why would a customer want to pay us anything other than the minimum?
Is it what we do, but also what we believe, right? Of what we believe, why we do it. Often I think of the world as missionaries, right? And it's the only thing you could do because you believe in it so much. Do you think that goes a long way in differentiating you from the person that just jumped in because there was money to be made in the market?
It absolutely does. But the sad thing is if you don't identify that within yourself and then share it, you really lose on both sides. You put extra effort and extra money into something and you don't charge for it. It's really bad. So many of the companies that we get to work with created these brilliant ideas, whether it's a service company or a manufacturing company, and they're doing something brilliant, but they do not stop and realize we have to tell the world. Just like you said, missionaries, you got to preach the gospel. And if you don't do it, nobody's going to be out there following you. Why would they?
Yeah, I like your analogies, and we'll cross metaphors here. But, you know, just because the Stones played something back in the 60s doesn't mean they stopped playing it, right? As far as evangelizing the gospel, you know, you've got to keep saying it. There's been one gospel that's been, you know, talked about for over 2,000 years, and people are still talking about it because not everyone has heard it. So this idea, well, I put out the book, I put out my idea, the whole world should know about it, just doesn't work.
Well, you're right. And if you look at a biblical example, in the New Testament, Jesus has numerous parables which are reinforcing the 10 commandments or several of the commandments. And some of the parables have 2 or 3 different versions of them, so that at some point we're finally starting to get the message because he's telling you the same thing over and over and over again until you go, okay, I got it. And that's what we have to do with the products and the solutions that we provide.
So Today in this noisy marketplace, what are people doing wrong and what are they doing right? I want them to think about how they can frame how they're taking this to the market or even taking themselves to the market.
I think people that are out there and they think the reason you should buy from our company is because you should like us personally, many of the times miss the boat. I mean, there are some products I guess you would want to buy from somebody you like, but I think a lot of times sometimes the customer gets lost in their ego and they want themselves on the ad, or they want to show their people are happy, fun people. But the reality is the consumer doesn't care. So I think that's a mistake where we think we're more important than we are. And I don't think we're that important. I think what we're doing is important. All right. Where I think things are done well is when a company thinks small, as in, here's my niche. This is what I do. I don't try to do everything for everybody. I think small in that I can be the very best if you as a customer fit this criteria. And it could be A, B, C, and D. If you don't, then we're not a good fit. So I think what's good out there is when you have that approach where you're thinking, we're not going to please everybody. And if we try to, we're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of energy, and lots of heart and soul. So let's focus on that little area that we do well, but let's own that area.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's so many times I hear people, well, Elon Musk does this, Jeff Bezos does this. Well, I'm not like either one of them. And they didn't do that when they were first starting out, right? Amazon just focused on books at the very beginning.
That's right. And we have to realize, you mentioned one thing about those two companies. One thing that has to be looked at as a differentiator for some, not all, businesses is what is the experience your customer gets when they buy from you? What is your customer experience? And if you look at Amazon, there's no human involved, but they made it easy to return. They make it easy to go shop, and they make it easy for things to be dropped off at your house almost every day. They make it easy for you, and you can trust them because they have a system with their stars and everything. Gee, this is a good product, bad product. Now, you look at other companies, they cannot offer that and I've talked with a lot of companies, for companies that say, I want to be the next Amazon, you have to realize you've got to go do all those things that make Amazon unique in their customer experience. So you've got to look at what is it like for a customer to work with me, to buy from me, and to put up with me when I don't do very well. How am I to work with? So I think that's another thing you have to look at. And some companies, Harley Davidson, base a lot of their success on what is the customer experience? Well, it's because they have the Harley owner group, which is also known as HOG. You get into that club, you feel great. That's your owner experience. But if you and I were going to start a motorcycle company today, we can't say, hey, yeah, we want a HOG like that. We want to do that. No. We're probably not going to be able to develop that. So we have to realize we're different. And as you said, it's not go copy everybody else.
So as you do that, how many differences do you have? Should you focus on one core one that people can remember? I think of like Amazon. Well, you mentioned a lot of those. It was always fast delivery, cheap prices, right? Walmart built all theirs, lowest prices. So as you think about that, is there one difference that you should really focus down on?
Well, you better not have more than 3 or 4. So if you have 25 different uniquenesses, they're probably not unique. If you have 1, 2, or 3, you're doing great. You can't afford to have more than that many unique differentiators. And by the way, you're not going to remember all of them and all that. And a lot of times, I mentioned what Amazon does, but it comes down to their customer experience. That's what makes them who they are. It's the customer experience, which is very brilliantly devised.
So how about when people will say, my story is different, right? I've got a different background, right? To me, everybody's story is different, but I don't know that it applies. How do you think about that as being different as you take that to the market, an employer, a customer, whoever you're talking to?
The story can be very important or it can be useless. So if you tell, I'll give you a real example. If you tell this story, if you say, hey, I'm the owner of an ambulance factory and we have 200 employees and we have a 300,000 square foot building and we've been in business for 40 years. It's like, who cares? I don't care. If you say, you know what, 40 years ago, 3 of us who are paramedics decided to build the safest and most innovative ambulance in the world. And our goal is to save lives every single day. And we have 15 different patents, and nobody can even compare to what we do as far as the experience that we deliver. Then you go, okay, wait a minute. That is interesting. They come from this background. That's why they do it. So our story is important, but the story needs to be interesting. And if it's not interesting or unique, don't even tell it.
And I would say the way you told that story too, version 1 was all looking at themselves, right? This is us. This is us. The version 2 was that missionary zeal. This is why we do it. This is what drives us. And that is differentiated on that because people can see themselves in there. And still, if I'm not buying an ambulance, doesn't matter to me. But boy, if I'm buying an ambulance, if I'm a paramedic, if I'm controlling the budget for that, that story supports the differentiation.
That's right. And an AI robot, an AI bot is not going to have passion. And that's that missionary zeal or passion that you just described. It's got to come out in our story and in how we share what we do and why.
So you talk about getting hearts and minds and then also market share with it. Is it all together? I was going to say it's not an either or, is it?
No, it's actually in that order. You got to get people's hearts. They got to believe, right? They got to feel like, okay, this is a good thing. And then their minds, it's got to be logical. Otherwise they're going down a path that's not good for them. But then what happens is you create an army, or you could call them missionaries, and they're out there and they want to see you do well. And that could be missionaries as in customers, not just employees. You can have customers out there, they are fired up and they want to see you do great. That's what it is. It's all of that. It's hearts and minds and market share. It's not Excel sheets and PowerPoints and spreadsheets and dollar signs. It won't work. We have to feel that the product or products we're buying are really safe, they're good for us, the people behind them are doing this for the right reasons so that we can trust them long term, and then we'll buy more and we'll actually bring more people to the table.
Well, and to think about it, if you start the opposite way, where too many businesses start, well, how can I get more market share, right? I'll just carve a little bit out there, and they can never do it because there's no differentiation, and it becomes the race to the bottom. If you want to get that market share, be a penny cheaper on eBay or Amazon, but guess what? You'll lose the business the same way because there's no loyalty, there's no hearts, there's no brand there. It's just a transaction.
Yeah, we've had many clients, because we work with private equity companies. The clients will come to us and they'll say, hey, we just bought a brand new company and we're going to combine it with another company that sells similar products, although they're very different brands. And we're going to merge the operations, and we're going to get rid of the unique things that this new company does because they cost more money, but we'll be able to sell it cheaper. And one of our goals is, in many cases, to stop them from doing that. Because what happens is the very thing they bought that had this cachet, this uniqueness, is going to be eroded. And then they're going to turn into everything else. And then honestly, a few years down the road, somebody is going to say, why in the world did you spend all that money to buy this company? It's not worth anything. So we've got to hold on. And I'll tell you, when I do my keynote speeches, I show a photo of the actress and model Cindy Crawford. And she has a beauty mark, birthmark, or mole. And here's the way I look at it. Sometimes your differentiation is not something that's superior, but it is something that is unique. It's something that maybe nobody else has. Now, the way we talk about it, if you call it a mole, that sounds a lot worse than a beauty mark, right? But the interesting thing in all of this is the reason Cindy Crawford did not get surgery to remove that mole was that her mother intervened and said, don't do it. It might leave a scar. And if you think about it, you have differentiation. And if you remove it, it might leave a scar. It may hurt you regarding customers, hearts, minds, etc. So you've got to be very careful as to what you do that is unique. It may not even be superior, but it's you. And there's something unique about it.
That's so interesting that you use that example, because as soon as you said that,
Yeah.
we both must be about of the same age, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Cindy Crawford, that's the first thing I thought of. Is that perfect? Would AI come up with
No.
the perfect model that way? No, but we know Cindy Crawford. We trust her. She's consistent over time. She's a legend there. But the AI one that's, sort of the perfect conglomeration of everything is just sort of unmemorable.
Right. Right. And, that's a great way to put that. Would AI have created an image of a model that looked like her? And the answer is absolutely not. But she stood out. And she didn't try to alter it and turn into some other model. She remained who she was. And that has been her calling card.
And if other people try to copy that, it's interesting. It's like, oh, they would first say, she looks like Cindy Crawford, right? And the guys from Play Bigger and Category Pirates, they'll talk about that you just called out the category king or category queen, that, every time they say Pepsi beats Coke, they're just saying, oh yeah, Coke is the leader.
Right.
So as we wrap up here, what do you want people to understand, to take away, and really do with this information?
I love differentiation. That is my differentiator. So my company has worked for almost 5 decades focusing on this. So what I want you to take away is that every human and every brand has the potential for great, unique differentiation. We all have that potential. The top thing to do is discover it. Don't try to create it. You already have it. Discover it, honor it, and then celebrate it. Celebrate it with employees. Celebrate it with family. Celebrate it with customers. It's something that you can hold on to that nobody else can claim.
Discover it, honor it, and celebrate it. The world will be a better place if you do that. Barry, thank you so much. And, what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. How can people find you? What's that next step? How can they get in touch with you? Definitely go get the book. I highly recommend it. I've listened to it. It's a great Audible book there. But how else can they get in touch with you?
Well, go to Amazon, buy the book, Power of Differentiation. Go to my website, which is barrylabov.com, or my company's website, labov.com. We also have a podcast called Difference Talks. Feel free to jump on there too. We have thousands of listeners and subscribers. I'm very, very up on anybody reaching out to me on LinkedIn. I will respond back. So let me know how I can help you, whether it's a conversation or anything else. I'm happy to do it.
And once again, for those people that are listening, sped up and no place to write, LaBov is LABOV.com. So you can find Barry or the company there.
That's right. And Tom, I'll tell you what, I love your show. I love how intellectual yet human it is. So thank you for the great work you're doing.
Proof that it is AI when we both don't talk in complete sentences, sometimes talk over each other, but AI will give us the summary of everything that was known years ago. But I love having these conversations talking about where the world is going.
Thank you.
What I loved about this conversation with Barry is that differentiation is not just a branding exercise. It's a business strategy. It's a life strategy. It's how you win hearts, minds, and ultimately market share. And for podcast guests, this is so critical. You don't have an hour to explain everything you do. You have a conversation. You have stories. You have examples. You have moments where the listener has to decide, this person gets me, this person is different, or this person, they just sound like everybody else. Barry's challenge was simple. Discover what makes you different. Honor it. Celebrate it. Don't hide the things that make you memorable. Don't sand off the edges until you sound like the AI-generated version of everybody else in your industry. So here's your action step. Before your next podcast interview, ask a few clients, colleagues, or team members this question. What's something that I do that I should never change? Listen carefully. Their answers may become your strongest talking points, your best stories, and the reason that listeners remember you and move from being a passive listener to an active visitor to an engaged super consumer. Because podcast interview marketing, it's not about getting heard by everyone. It's about being remembered by the right people for the right reasons and giving them a clear next step to continue the conversation.